The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and lavender. In a quiet nursing home on the outskirts of New York City, an old man sat by the window, watching the last leaves of autumn dance in the wind. His name was Romeo Carter, once a young soldier, now a frail shadow of the man he used to be. Every evening, he sat in the same spot, holding a letter so worn it was barely held together. The nurses had asked him about it before, but he never spoke of it. Tonight, however, something felt different. Maybe it was the crispness in the air or the way his heart ached just a little more than usual. A young nurse, Emily, noticed his distant gaze. She had always been drawn to Romeo's quiet melancholy, sensing there was a story locked inside him. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "tell me about her." Romeo turned, startled. He searched Emily's kind eyes, and for the first time in decades, he felt ready. He placed the fragile letter on his lap and exhaled. "She was my Juliet," he whispered. 2. Love in a Time of War. Romeo Carter met Juliet Russo in 1952. He was a young soldier, stationed in Italy after the war, and she was the daughter of an Italian shopkeeper. Their worlds should never have collided. His uniform marked him as an outsider, a reminder of a war that had left deep scars. But love doesn't follow rules. One rainy afternoon, Romeo had taken shelter in Juliet's family bakery. She had laughed at his broken Italian, offering him a warm pastry and a smile that lit up the room. "What's your name?" she had asked. "Romeo," he'd answered, half smirking. She had giggled. "Like the tragedy?" "I prefer to think of it as a love story," he had said. And just like that, their story began. Every evening, Romeo would sneak away from the base, meeting Juliet by the old stone bridge overlooking the river. They would talk for hours, about dreams, about the future, about a world where love was enough to erase the past. But the world wasn't so kind. Juliet's father disapproved of their love. "A soldier from another land? No, Juliet. You belong here." The military wasn't forgiving either. Romeo's commanding officer warned him against forming attachments. "War doesn't leave room for love," he had said. But Romeo and Juliet believed differently. One night, beneath the glow of a full moon, Romeo had taken Juliet's hands. "Come with me," he had pleaded. "To America. We'll start over." Juliet's eyes had shone with love, but also hesitation. "My family." Romeo had understood. He had kissed her forehead, promising, "Then I'll wait." The next day, he was called back to the States. He left a letter under their bridge, promising to return. She never came. 3. A lifetime of waiting. Romeo had searched for her. He had written letters, sent messages, even returned to Italy years later. But Juliet was gone. Her family had moved, and no one knew where. Heartbroken, Romeo had never married. He had built a life, a career, but a piece of him had always remained on that bridge, waiting. And now, in the twilight of his years, he sat by the window, holding the last letter she had written him, the one that had finally found him 50 years too late. "My Romeo. I came to the bridge, but you were gone. My father sent me away, and I had no way to reach you. I have loved you every day since. If you ever read this, know that my heart has always been yours. Juliet." Romeo's hands trembled as he read it once more. Emily wiped away a tear. "She loved you, Mr. Carter." Romeo smiled sadly. "Love doesn't fade with time, Emily. It only grows." 4. A love that lives on. That night, Romeo Carter passed away in his sleep, a peaceful smile on his lips. At his funeral, Emily placed a single letter in his hands, the same one he had held on to for so long. As she walked away, a gust of wind lifted the fragile paper, carrying Juliet's words into the sky. Some love stories don't end in tragedy. Some live on, forever. Epilogue, a bridge between worlds. Weeks later, Emily took a trip to Italy. She found the old stone bridge where two lovers once dreamed of a future together. With a soft smile, she placed a white rose on the bridge's worn surface. "For Romeo and Juliet," she whispered. And as she walked away, she swore she felt a warmth in the autumn breeze, as if love itself had found its way home.